Everybody, my name is Luke Reardon, and this is my Mod 1 AAP 803. Let's get this class started. Oh, here's a little bit about myself here. I'm going to try to get this thing in the way. A little bit about myself. I'm married. My beautiful wife, actually high school sweetheart. Her name is Sarah. We're down here. She grew up in Abilene, Kansas, and I'm from Solomon, Kansas. For those of you who don't know where that's at, that's right east of Salina. We have two boys named David and Tommy. David just turned 2 years old, a little more than 2 now, and Tommy is now 5 months already. The second one seems to grow a little faster. This is Tommy, this is David. Hobbies, guys, very briefly, pretty much anything outside. I love to hunt, fish, play frolic with my wife, or frisbee golf. I love to golf. I love kayaking, canoeing, and just anything to get me outside. And if my family can come with me, then it's that much better. So a little about my work history. Move this again here. About my work history. I taught for 1 year right out of college. I went to college at Benedictine in Atchison, Kansas, which is about 45 minutes north of Kansas City. I ended up student teaching in Brookside, Missouri. Then they hired me on for the following year, so I lived in Kansas City for a year. I did love it. I loved my job there, but I wanted to get back home, or just around my family and where my wife's family's from as well. So this is I just finished my 4th year. This next year will be my 5th year in Solomon, Kansas, where I am, where I currently live. Most of my time gets caught up with coaching. I was hired to coach just basketball, and then you know how it is in a small school. You kind of do everything. So I was 4th year of head middle school boys basketball, 3 years of middle school and high school football. They asked me to do both, so I do special teams for high school, and then I head coach the middle school, which is a pretty busy time of the year. And then 4 years of high school and middle school track. So I'll travel to both the events, but they kind of practice together because, once again, we are a small school. So these pictures here are just kind of a little bit bragging for myself, but also these awesome kids that I have. This one up top here, she was one of my throwers this year and actually took state and shot put. She won the whole thing, so that was really, really exciting. This picture here was last year. We won the middle school boys basketball league tournament, which outside of league, nobody in Kansas cares, but it was a pretty exciting time. It was what we'd worked for, and kids were pretty excited. I was excited, and it was a fun time. And then that picture down here, those are those same boys that were up here, and we went 7-0 in our middle school football league year as well. So we got a good class coming up, and great kids. They're awesome. So they're going to be freshmen now, so they've kind of left my kind of left me. Anyway, okay, so let's get into it. What is action research? From what I could compile here, action research breaks away any barriers between the students learning and one participating by allowing teachers to act as a part of both. I did like that. I liked how they were also learning while they were trying to implement this strategy of research. Action research is an ongoing reflective process. I'm going to go into that a little bit later. That reflection piece to me is very, very important and something I personally need to work on a little bit better. It's a type of inquiry that is practical, theoretical, and is always changing and improving. So I thought, as what is action research, I threw in the steps into this slide as well, because to me that's what it is. These are the steps that take place within action research for us to better benefit all academic learners in our school. So 1, identify the problem and envision success. Develop a plan of action, collect data, analyze data, and form conclusions. Modify your theory and repeat the cycle and report the results. But I think after report the results, it's still an ongoing process. It never really ends. That step number 4, analyzing data and form conclusions, that personally is where I have trouble with. I usually stop at that point. And I don't go into that reflection process, which is so important for not only myself, but as collaborating with other teachers, reflecting together, have a lot more minds on the problem given at hand that, reflecting and making it better. And then once you report the results, it's no two are the same. What is the purpose of action research? So, to help educators understand what is going on in their classrooms and identify changes that will benefit the teaching and learning. It can make a real difference to practice by enabling changes that improve students' experience and other aspects of practice. It can provide space for us to think deeply about issues that affect us. It's progress in our professionalism as well. I think a lot of us, especially, myself, again, I look at these, what can it do, and I think back and reflect on my educational experience, and I'm only 4 or 5 years in, and there's some days where I'm just doing what's comfortable. I do what's comfortable because I'm teaching, or coaching many things after school. We're traveling, and it's just hard to dive in depth as much as I need to. So this progress and professionalism is a very important one for me. More main types of action research: individual teacher research, collaborating, school-wide, reflective action research. Yes, individual, just myself with a student, maybe my classroom, collaborating with other teachers. That's something at my school that I believe that we do very, very well. School-wide research, that I think, again, being in a small school in USD 393, our district, the Solomon Gorillas, we're K-12 school. We're all in one building. So this does help. So when I do want to implement this design research or action research, then it will be a lot easier for me. So what's the difference between action and traditional research? Action allows for change, always adapting. It's an ongoing process. Helps answer questions about effectiveness and learning capabilities when applied to the real world. No controlled groups tailored to individuals. This is very important for the no controlled groups. We aren't succumbing this action research to a specific group, so we can kind of see the outcome as we start, which I think is very, very important. When compared to traditional research, I think there are more controlled groups kind of go against individuality and diversity. I don't like that one-size-fits-all mentality. This action research, being able to reflect on what worked for individual people, individual groups, is very important rather than finding that definite answer that works for one group and applying that everywhere else. So what are some common problems with action research? The unknown. So how big this project be? How much time should be invested? Ethical issues, the role of analysis, adopting a positive approach. The thought of complacency, that was a big one for me. How big this project can be. When action research to me is a very, very, I like the steps and I like the different kinds that there can be. But when there's no definite answer, from the time that I was in preschool all the way till I graduated college, you're told exactly what to do. And when you're told exactly what to do to attack something like action research, where there's no definite answer and it's ongoing, and the people that you are doing it for or trying to research on, again, no two are the same. So what might work for one may not work for that same person in a month or a year. And what might work for one might not work or probably will not work for the person sitting right next to them. So how big should this project be? Finding a time for when to stop, I guess. Not just stop, but find a time to reflect. When you go into this action research and you don't know what the outcome is going to be, then how do you know when it presented itself? And that is something that I would probably have trouble with. So reflecting on that at a given point would be hard for me to basically stop to be able to reflect. Hopefully I'll get to that reflective point and understand when to stop and reflect instead of just keep going and going and going. So how could action research help me? Always reflecting on student success as well as reflecting my own professionalism, making changes based on my reflection, and understanding that action research is ongoing. that first one, guys, to me is important. Again, that reflecting. That's what I said I was going to talk about, reflecting a little bit more, but reflecting on student success as well as reflecting my own professionalism. Not only reflecting on how the research went, but did I personally put in 100%, 110%, like we always say, as coaching, but did we go about it the best that we could, and could there be a better outcome than what came, if that makes sense? But I think that is part of that reflecting piece. And that making changes is important to any reflective process. There's always a way to get better. So, and understanding that action research is ongoing, and that goes to those other two bullet points, the first two, that coming back to this one, that thought of complacency. I wanted to say that understanding that's ongoing, I don't want to stop and just think, oh, that's good enough. Being consistent, not getting complacent, and continuing to reflect on how I'm going about it and how the kids' success rates are being shown. The effect on student learning, students' confidence and social skills. That's a huge one. What I liked about this action research so much that when I'm reading was the fact that when kids understand things in the classroom and go about it in a whole different way and apply it to the real world, how it helped their social skills outside of school with just friends and in groups that aren't affiliated with the school. I mean, that's huge. That's what schools are meant to get children to become productive members of society. And if this action research can help, then we better all be trying it. Positive academic outcomes. It pushed high academic learners to achieve higher marks, increase all-around student engagement. Students were more willing to reflect on their learning. I want to look back on that number 3. I think as a school system as a whole, we're doing a lot, which is great. This is great. As a whole, we're trying to bring up the lower-end learners, which I say lower-end learners loosely, but the learners that have more trouble in the classroom. And a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this too sometimes, but trying to and not pushing forward our higher academic achievers. They are the ones that seem, they're bored. They're the ones that, we've got a couple of kids that are in the gifted program, but also they're ineligible the whole year. It just seems like the kids that are bored in classrooms don't perform to their level because not that they know it, but there's no challenge, so it doesn't intrigue them to continue. So teachers' performance, enhanced understanding in content area, enhanced understanding of different student approaches, learning to teach in innovative and different ways, better collaboration between colleagues. Those last two to me are more important than the other two, but they're all important. But again, complacency, like I mentioned earlier, number 3, I bet you can get just some old burnt out teachers fired back up. The change, I know we're all teachers. We can't sit still for more than 2 seconds. We're always moving. So for someone to get complacent, but having this innovative approach could get some teachers fired back up. Better collaboration between colleagues, being able to accept help, ask for help, and push out what we've discovered to benefit the school as a whole. So just some thoughts about this that as I worked through this assignment. I feel that this is a difficult concept to grasp, seeing as each step will be different for each individual situation. There are no set guidelines. I kind of mentioned that earlier. This does not mean that is a bad thing. I believe this reflective practice is more of a mindset of understanding that this process is never done. That'll be hard for me to grasp. The things I worry about are more my own individual faults such as timeline, steps, when should one stop and reflect, and when does a conclusion happen. I also worry about missing or ignoring benefits that may be happening while I try to reach what I thought was supposed to happen. So, real quick, I don't think I put it in here, but one of the articles mentioned having that positive approach where you kind of see the outcome before it happens, so you're ignoring things that are happening. You don't want to try to, you go into this without knowing the answer. And for me, that's hard because you always have in your head the conclusion, what it should look like. So it's important for myself to try to ignore that because usually I'm wrong anyway. Just ask my wife. But to ignore what you think the conclusion should be and not ignore what it ends up being. I hope that makes sense. But those are my sort of thoughts. The best of my knowledge, we have not done much of action research. We have been close, but not specifically. We are a small school. We do have we do a good job of communicating and collaborating